Not only did these two gentlemen share their first name, they were both well-respected cowboys and brother-in-laws. Thomas Clark was born to Irish immigrants in Sonora, California in June of 1919. Tom's family moved to the White Ranch in Knights Ferry when he was just a toddler. The White family raised Tom's dad, and ultimately he inherited the ranch. Both Tom and his sister Frances were raised on the ranch and graduated from Oakdale High School. Tom's first job was working for Bob Keller in Eugene. His salary was a whopping $30 a month, which included food. It was there he met Mildred Powell, the ranch cook, and he married her in 1942. Tom worked for top cattle ranchers such as Mike Hunt, Nielsen Hill, and Gus Steffens. He worked at the U3 in the early 1950s. He partnered with Colin Harvey in the late 50s, taking cattle to Brown's Meadow by Long Barn.
Well, Tom Clark partnered with my dad, Colin Harvey, on the range behind Long Barn, Brown's Meadow, and they would each take their own cows together up there. And in the spring, my brother and I and cousins would go up and put fences up and put all the water gaps up and fix the fences. And in the fall, Tom Clark would gather the cows, and that's when I would go with Tom when we were gathering cows in the high country. There were no outside fences, so the cows would get over into the neighboring range, and we'd have to go. We rode for miles just to find those cows, and I used to follow Tom all the time up there in the fall, and he taught me a lot about the mountains.
Tom Clark passed away in January of 1998. Thomas Butler was born in November 1922 in Sonoma, California. Tom's dad was employed by the San Francisco Water Company, and the family was very poor. One of his first cowboy jobs was herding sheep and cattle for a lady named Rose Shelper, who just happened to be Phil Stadler's aunt. He did some cowboying for George Walker around Livermore. Tom then rode the train to Nevada, where he worked on several ranches around Elko and Winnemucca until he hired on with the Marvel family at the 25 Ranch. Tom was drafted into service for World War II, and he rode the bus to Salt Lake City, where he was not drafted due to high blood sugar. Later, he hired on at the U3 Ranch in Farmington, and he met up with Tom Clark. It was there he met Tom Clark's sister Frances, and they were married in 1953. Tom went to work for Paul Erickson in 1954 and worked there for 16 years.
He was a man of great integrity. You know, he was devoted to Francie, and he wanted to do the right thing in his job. He didn't want to cheat anybody, and I don't think he did. You know, he was pretty upfront. He was opinionated like all of us, and he would say certain things about what's right and what's wrong, but he would seldom talk down about anyone. It'd have to be a pretty serious deal, and he tried to always bring out the best in most people. Say the best thing about it if he had said anything. But he was good to work around. He never badmouthed the boss. Of course, the boss was my dad, but when we helped other people, he wouldn't say much negatively about him, you know, and just try to do a good job. Never complained about the hours, and always had a pretty good attitude about everything. You know, I can remember being soaking wet horseback, and we would drive cattle to LaGrange to the rodeo, and my dad furnished the cows for the wild cow milking and the calves for the calf roping. And it just poured rain on us. I think it rained the rodeo out, so we were driving him home. It was only 6 miles, but we'd drive up the highway, and we were wet, and he's singing, "How in the wet heck can I wash my neck if it ain't gonna rain no more?" And water just running all over us. But he just had a real good attitude about that kind of stuff. And he told me on the way down one time, Francie was in the lead of the cattle. I said, "How old are you, Tom?" He said, "I'm 34. And I said, "Well, how's Francie?" He said, "Oh, she's 57. I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "She's a lot older than you, huh?" He said, "Yes." So I just let it go at that, and I got home and told my stepmother, and she just laughed.
Tom and Frances later inherited the Randall Ranch in LaGrange, where he and Frances ran their own cattle. Tom passed away in December of 2002. Frances continues to live on the ranch and run her own cattle. Stories have been shared that these two men could always be found working somewhere together, either working their own cattle, helping local cattle ranchers at the sales yard, or enjoying an evening barbecue with friends. Both are hard-working cowboys and gentlemen that are sorely missed by their peers.